So we have covered international trade, but our emphasis was on free international trade, as in import and export. But when we talk about trade barriers, these are generally tariffs, quotas, or embargo. So definitely someone loses and someone gains. But losers, from time to time, they create lobbies to turn out their aggression into political clout, which results into tariffs or quotas. These are restrictions on trade. So, tariff, it's a tax on imported goods, and this only affects the countries who are importers. Remember, if I ask you to draw a graph of tariff, you will always draw it on the graph of importing country, not on export case. For example, if government says that there is a 10% tax levied on automobiles or a 5% tax levied on imported mobile phones, this is an example of tariffs. Quotas, on the other hand, these are also restrictions, but it's not a percentage or a tax, it's a restriction on amount of imported goods. For example, government might impose a quota that you can only import 60,000 of this particular commodity. So the emphasis is to restrict the number of any product you are importing. And finally, you have embargo. So embargo, it's an official ban, you can say, on trade with any particular country due to some reasons. For example, Pakistan is not allowed to trade with Israel due to the history we share. As I mentioned before, tariff is a tax on imported goods and it only affects countries who are importers, not exporters. That's why I have already drawn the case of import country. And that's what I expect from you too. So remember, whenever government imposes a tariff, there is an increase in price. Suppose if they say there is a 5% or a tax, 10% tax on the important goods. So with that, the price would raise. But we begin with the initial point. We're not beginning with equilibrium point because our focus has changed from before trade and after trade to before tariff and after tariff because it is a tariff case. And tariff is always imposed on a trade case, which is import in this scenario. So initially you're at PBT, where world price is equal to domestic price. PBT here stands for price before tariff. All right. So here you notice that the quantity supplied is only 20, whereas the quantity demanded is 100. That is because of a lower price. Remember, when countries import, producers are not better off, only consumers are better off because the price is low, so there is no good incentive for producers to produce more and increase their supply. So you notice around 80% of shortage here because there are only 20 suppliers, whereas 100 people are demanding more good. So your imports would be around 80% before the tariff is imposed. So let's see the consumer surplus, producer surplus before tariff. So A, B, C, D, E, F, this is your consumer surplus because this is the area above market price and below the demand curve. And your producer surplus is only G because that's the area below the price and above the supply curve. At this point, you will not earn any government revenue because government earns some revenue when they levy a tax. So this is a free trade at the moment, so zero government revenue. To get total surplus, you sum consumer and producer surplus, and it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So we know consumers are better off, but still we cannot say whether tariff is beneficial or not because we always compare total surplus. So now suppose government imposes a 5% tax on, let's say, mobile phones. So this will increase the price of mobile phones by 5%. So tariff increases the price, and now your domestic price will be equal to the tariff rate, as in P with tariff stands for price with tariff. This is your domestic price. Now you forget uh, the world price curve. Anyway, so at this point, you notice as the price has increased due to a tariff, you notice there is an increase in supply from 20 to 40, whereas there is a decrease in quantity demanded from 100 to 80 because definitely it's clear the price is high comparatively, so consumers demand less and producers supply more. But still, we see there is a shortage. So here we will import around 40% only because there is a tax and the price is high. So whenever there is a tariff imposed, the quantity of imports decreases. So they have decreased from 80 to 40%. Now let's calculate total surplus. So with the new tariff price, your consumer surplus is only A, B. The area above the price and below the demand curve is now only A and B. What is your producer surplus? No, it's not C, G, D, F, E. It's only C and G because producer surplus is the area below price and above the supply curve. So C and G is only covered whereas D, F, E is out of the supply. So government earns a revenue which is F. This is in terms of the tax levied. If the tax is 5%, so that's what the government earns. So then we sum up to get total surplus. Total surplus is A, B, C, G, F. If you compare the total surplus before tariff, you notice before tariff total surplus was higher and after tariff total surplus is less. It means a tariff is not efficient for economy. Why? Because it has created a deadweight loss. Deadweight loss is the loss in economic efficiency due to government intervention. Government has intervened by implying a tax, so you have lost D and E. Before tariff, D and E were in total surplus. Now, after tariff, they are not. Why? Because D is the lost efficiency due to overproduction. The price was higher, so suppliers increased their production beyond the optimum level. Whereas E represents the lost efficiency due to underconsumption. Because it's a higher price, consumer demand less comparatively. So D and E sums up to be a triangle, and this is a loss. This is a deadweight loss due to government intervention. So definitely what a tariff does, tariff gives revenue to the government, consumer and consumer surplus decreases, total surplus decreases, there is a deadweight loss in the economy. So keeping in view this information, definitely this is not a good decision to make. So that's what trade barriers or restriction does to the economy.